Yeah, that's to be fair, Tony. That's only the public collection that I've shown you. The behind the scenes one is just unbelievable.
Really?
Yeah, it's got every shade of sepia that you've ever heard of.
This obviously is an aesthete who appreciates the finer things in life.
Yeah, I don't get it myself, but you know. Each to their own.
Exactly that.
Gareth, do you want to see it?
Do you want to see what? Ooh.
That's not going to show.
No, it's not focusing. There it is. There it is.
Keep it still, then. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, it's a thing of beauty. Well done, you. We are all very proud of you for that, Andy. Well done. Good effort.
Right. Still want Steve?
Just going to get cracking, Andy, or should we give it a minute or two?
Have you got the openings? Have we got the opening slide? I think we have.
Yeah, slides up.
I'm going to remind everybody about usual.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll kick off then, and I think more people will join as we get on. So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the MMN event this afternoon from MPL. It's this afternoon's event will be focusing on advanced machinery and AMPI, which is the new initiative. This event is being recorded, so by joining, you're giving your consent to being in the recording. Please, could you keep your camera switched off and your microphone muted throughout the duration of the event. If you do have any questions for the panel, we'll come to those at the end. So could you please drop them into the chat and I'll help facilitate those towards the back end of the meeting. So we've got a great jam-packed session today. It's a slightly longer MMN than usual. So people that have joined us before, thank you for coming back. It might be slightly longer than you've previously been accustomed to. And for anybody new that's joining us, you're very, very welcome. We've got 6 speakers today. We're going to talk about the AMPI initiative. We're going to hear about AMPI in general, where it is, where it's come from. We're going to hear about how we plan to integrate and engage with local industries to help support and overcome challenges. We're going to hear from an academics perspective, the industrial perspective, and then we're going to talk a little bit about industrial engagements across the region. After we finish with that, we'll take some questions and answers, and then we'll close out just before 5 o'clock. So given us it's quite a packed schedule, I'll be quiet now. I'll hand across to Tony, who will begin the presentations. So over to Tony.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Let me just see if I can get this to work. Has that screen come up for everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that yet.
Okay. Just tell me when you can see it.
Yeah, I've got that, Tony.
Yes, we can.
All good.
It's there, yep.
Super. Okay, we have liftoff. So thanks for the introduction, Chris. Just good afternoon to everybody, and thanks for joining. Obviously, time's very short, so we'll try and squeeze in as much as we can. I'm not going to do death by PowerPoint, but just a few slides really to explain what AMPI is and why it's relevant to this group. So thanks to NPL and to the network for hosting the event. So I'm Tony Bannon, and along with Paul Shaw, some of you may know, and Gareth, Andy and the NPL team, I've been working on the AMPI project initiative. It's nearly 3 years now. I've been working on it personally for a lot longer than that, actually. It goes back about 10 years to the original idea and thinking. But in terms of it being a project that started to materialize, it's been about 3 years, which is amazing, really. Time's gone very quickly. A lot of that, obviously, the last 2 years or so through, 20 months or so through the pandemic, which has been not helped, but we're still going strong, which is great. and AMPI has been delivered really by is being delivered by a group of very committed people at MPL, at Rochdale Development Agency, who's the other public sector partner, as it were, in conjunction with 4 universities at Huddersfield, Leeds, Salford, and Manchester. So very a diverse team of people, and quite a few industrialists putting a lot of heavy lifting in terms of the project work and bringing innovation programs through. So really great. It's okay having an idea, but delivering an idea through to reality takes a lot more work. And you know, we've had brilliant support from NPL and Rochdale Development Agency as well. So I think we're very lucky. So anyway, my day job is to manage Precision Technologies Group, which is Holroyd. Most people, or many people, have heard of Holroyd. It's the biggest brand we've got, which makes special purpose machinery and special components that are made on those special purpose machines. Our biggest industries are screw compressor, rotor production, and so you've got just a few examples there. On the left-hand side, that's actually a grinding machine for making pump screws that was exported to Brazil. Excuse me, turn my phone off. And you'll see there, measurement is a crucial part of what we do, because we have a closed-loop grinding system. So we grind almost to final size. We take and these are very complex 3D profiles, and we'll take a scan using, in this case, a Renishaw probe, and then take a final pass to bring each component to the target reference profile that we want. And we use that technology extensively through everything that Holroyd produces. Top right is a more conventional compressor rotor grinding machine. Again, everything's exported. We've got one customer in the UK and Scotland, but otherwise it's pretty well all export. Maybe there's a little bit actually to a couple of businesses that do some power takeoff systems for automotive, but it's mainly exported. Bottom right there is a friction stir welding machine, which is operating in the Czech Republic for making battery trays for electric vehicles. That's a substantial business for us now. We make machine tools for welding of lightweight body structures. So that's PTG. We also produce these rotors. We're one of the world's largest producers of compressor rotors for compressor industries, and basically refrigeration, air conditioning, industrial air, compressed air supply. A lot of those systems use rotor screw compressors as opposed to alternate. There are others as well, but that's one of the bigger industries. So just really AMPI, the origins of AMPI, I'll come to in a moment, but then the reason for AMPI, but just a quick status update. And Gareth is going to go on into some detail about the Strength in Places funding. So we won that award earlier in the year. It's a terrific outcome from a lot of work that went in from the team. The thick end of £23 million for innovation funding. So that's for AMPI partners and member companies. And we're just about to roll out a membership scheme. So we're going to really hope as many people join as possible. The only criteria being you have to be involved in manufacturing of machinery in the UK, or components that go into machinery, or it's a very close association with that. It doesn't matter where the ownership lies, it's that the activity is in the UK. Currently we have a small group of companies that have been awarded innovation funding, and we hope to increase that pool of businesses as well, so that we get a bigger group over the coming period. Rochdale Borough Council, through its development agency, which is the Inward Investment arm, have pledged Towns Fund monies for the facility. We're going to build a facility that will be used as hopefully the centre of a cluster. And the first stage, the innovation projects are assessed and approved. They're in the Strength in Places bid. Some very innovative machinery from a number of industrial partners that are taking part. And I think this is really the key thing I wanted to explain, get across to the network is why is AMPI necessary? So if you think about the term, the Advanced Machinery and Productivity Institute, there's a strapline that we used with our bid documents and in our communication for marketing purposes and so on, which is creating and developing machinery, resources and technologies and people to manufacture tomorrow's products. It's a little bit glib in some respects, but it really does say what we're trying to do, because without machinery, we don't believe there is a viable manufacturing industry, or certainly it's a central part of manufacturing industry for the UK. And we believe that we've lost our way in machinery production over the last several decades. And our aim for AMPI is to reverse that trend and then grow the machinery sector as a key part of the manufacturing industry for the UK. And so to put that in context, and some of you will know this, will know these numbers in broad terms, but we're still, depends which data you use, but we're still the 8th or 9th largest manufacturing nation. And it's above 10% of our GDP as a whole. Now, it encompasses a lot of different industries. It's not just machinery, it's chemicals, it's pharmaceuticals, it's food, packaging products, and so on. It's a broad range of products, but all of it essentially depends upon the use of technology of some sort. I mean, I say all of it, nearly all of it. Obviously, there are artisan products and handmade products, but it's very much a minority is that, because modern production has to be done efficiently and productively, and that requires technology-based systems. Our view is that manufacturing is definitely part of, it's an essential part of a balanced economy, and I think that message has got through to people in government and those circles, and AMPI is intended to drive that message home even more strongly and leverage the message so that we get investment back into machinery. These numbers are a little bit out of date, but I don't believe they will have changed greatly, because of course the last 2 years or so there's not been a lot of, there was shrinkage and then expansion, so I suspect we're not a long way off these values today. Approximately 200 billion, 192 billion approximate pounds of activity, and employing directly 2.5 million people. But for each of those jobs in manufacturing, direct jobs, there is somewhere between 2.5 and 3 people employed in the service sector supporting them in every kind of business imaginable. All of manufacturing, as I said, requires some form of machinery, and that's where we believe that there's a need. So if you think about this, this is a communication tool really to explain this to non-engineers and non-manufacturing people, and I know that most people on this call are actually very familiar with this, so I won't labour it, but it's a useful way of looking at it to communicate it. So if you think about advanced machinery, and I'm not just talking about machine tools here, obviously that's probably the highest grade of machinery that is made is machine tools, because of the nature of process capability and the demands to manufacture metal goods. But there are also a lot of machines that are made in the UK that make things like wallpaper, polymer films, winding machines, reproduction machines for all kinds of printed products and so on. Special purpose machines that are used in electronic systems. We make machines that compound tires for rubber for tire manufacturing and so on. There's a whole array of machines that share some kind of commonality, which is precision. So if you think about the technologies that enable machinery, for want of a description, I've grouped them into five categories: machine tools, automation, connectivity, digital and electronics, and metrology and sensing. If you think about each of those as a technology in its own right, they are what enables machinery as it currently is made and utilised, and as it will in future be utilised. Particularly when you come down to connectivity and digital systems, because we know that that is increasingly the route to advanced productivity and automation. There's a huge role for metrology at the bottom. That's not just to appeal to this audience, that this is a fundamental requirement and a fundamental enabler for machinery. It's been in there all along, and it won't change. Then think about the sectors that are actually dependent upon this, and it's pretty well everything that we see, use, ride on, ride in, you know, everything we use in our day-to-day lives that really makes a difference and gives us the benefits of an advanced society is based upon those machines that are using those enabling technologies. If we lose the ability to make machine tools and advanced machinery, I would propose that quite a lot of those things that we just take for granted as everyday products will start to become less available. We already see shortages and supply chain problems today with the shock that we've had through, well, I don't know how much of it's COVID and how much of it's Brexit, and there's no point getting political about it, but we all know that it's a challenging time. The fact that we don't have a machinery industry to support ourselves when we even want to make ventilators is a bit of a wake-up call in some quarters, and I think that was quite useful. Just coming towards the end really now, strategic objectives for AMPI. Well, I won't read them all out, but you get the point. We want it to be a catalyst for manufacturing success and productivity growth, essentially, because we need to do that. So we've got key objectives. We really do want to work with the catapult and as part of the of that network of excellence. We don't want to duplicate what the catapult's doing. We want to be a partner with the catapult, existing catapult centres, to give them to benefit UK manufacturing and machinery production side by side. So you can see what's the general target there and what we're trying to achieve. Clearly, skills and training is at the heart of it. That's a huge challenge. That's going to take generations to fix, but we've got to start somewhere. I know there's a ton of work gone on and is continuing to go on in that. Really good work from some of the engineering institutions and the training providers. What we want to do with AMPI is provide a specialist route to take, not to compete with any of those existing paths, but to add almost like a supplementary specialism for machinery use and development and maintenance that will work with those existing providers. This is just something that I saw Mike Wilson present. It's a good few months ago now, and he made a superb presentation on behalf of the MTC in Anstey, talking about the adoption of robots in the UK, and it really slapped me around the head as a perfect indicator of the challenge that we face. So this is courtesy of Mike and the World Robotics Report 2020, so it's pretty well up to date. But apparently the UK ranks 24th, and if you use a measure of density of robot units per 10,000 people employed, and we're at apparently 89 units per 10,000 people. So we don't even make it onto this chart, which is quite of a shock. Top of the chart is Singapore, Republic of Korea, and so on. And then you've got some pretty strong European competitors, the usual suspects, Germany, but Sweden's in there and Denmark. So you can see that we are a long way behind where we ought to be if we're going to really genuinely improve our productivity, because this is a key element of that complex puzzle that we need to put in place. So thanks to Mike and the MTC for allowing me to use that. I think that's a very useful little wake-up call for us, and I hope within let's give ourselves a sensible target with Mike and his team working on this, because that's one of their real focus areas, and maybe with some help from AMPI we can get ourselves on that chart within a few years. That should be doable if you look at the people, the countries that are on there. This is a very short, I like this slide. This is Gareth's, and Gareth's going to talk more about this in a few minutes. But really, we want to focus. This is the activity, streams of activity of AMPI. And AMPI is underpinned by an advisory board, and then there are these streams of activities in those various categories. But really crucial is that floaty bubble over there is there for a reason. With AMPI, the community and network, AMPI needs a community now. It needs partners. It needs members to give AMPI, allow AMPI to be the voice of this industry, so that we can finally make some noise and be heard in the places that matter. And influence policy and influence investment decisions. That will need AMPI to have a very strong community and network, and that's a really crucial outcome for us. So, we'll be asking people to support AMPI and get involved. It needs to be very cost effective. We don't want to exclude any decent company on the strength of, by putting silly fees in place. We've got to make that manageable. So we're working through that. And there are just some of our either supporting companies or member companies and institutions that have got involved with us up to date. My apologies if you're been involved or supporting it and not on there. It's a constantly moving target. Is this? But please, if you are involved and you're not on there, send me your logo and I'll make sure it goes on. And I think, yes, that's it. So thanks all for that. I'll just shut this down and then hand back control to, I think, Gareth following me.
I am. Thanks, Tony.
Yeah. Have I given it back to you there, Gareth? Have you got it?
I think so.
Yeah. Super.
Can you now see my slide is the question?
Yes.
Yep.
Fantastic. Well, Tony, thanks very much for setting the scene there. That really brings to life the ambition and the need for AMPI, the Advanced Machinery and Productivity Institute. What I'm going to talk about now is the initiative that's within that. So the program of work that we've managed to secure the first funding tranche of. And just to put it in context, there's that temple, to borrow a sort of an automotive engineering diagram. There's the temple with the pillars of activity that we need to be engaged in, as Tony was saying, to really bring to life the benefit for the community. So the great news is that we have secured, as Tony said, £22.6 million of UKRI, UK Research and Innovation funding through their flagship Strength in Places Fund programme. So that has given us a 5-year innovation programme to deliver some really exciting work, and I'll touch on some of that in a moment, but colleagues are going to follow to really bring to life how this programme is going to come about. It is very much focused around generating and stimulating impact within the advanced machinery industry, within the supply chain. And because it's the Strength in Places Fund, it's very much based within the region, which is Greater Manchester and West Yorkshire. I'll show you a map in a moment to bring that to life. So it's industry defining, and over the past couple of years we've been engaging with industry to understand what is the need, and that's helped define what some of the work that we're doing. So we'll be delivering projects with industry. We have our academic partners that Tony outlined, who are really looking at the cutting edge, the discovery research of what's needed. We've managed to set aside some funding to help businesses who aren't in the position to engage in a big multi-year program, but have a challenge here and now. We'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in a moment. And we've also made sure that we set aside some time so that we continue to talk to industry, we continue to reach out and to engage, to understand what the emerging need is, and to double check that we are actually delivering against our plan. So this programme, this Strength in Places Fund, is I'm just going to highlight the bit of AMPI now that it fits in, is within that innovation portfolio. It's the first innovation programme, we hope, of many. We hope that we will continue to secure the interest of the funding bodies, of industry itself, to invest in innovation that's going to help us all on that journey. This is so big and so important that we're also standing up its own independent steering committee so that we, AMPI, the community, can hold the Strength in Places Fund consortium to account and make sure that we are delivering that work as is needed. So that's where the Strength in Places Fund sits in the grand scheme, in the temple that is AMPI. So what is it? It is, well, this is somewhat echoing what Tony said, because it's very hard to split the two out. So it is about a partnership between internationally leading academics and industrialists and experts from across national laboratories, and NPL being the predominant one in that, but not the only moving forward. As I said, it's Strength in Places Fund, so it is focused around the north of England. It is all about making sure we get access for business to R&D expertise and facilities and capability that isn't readily or easily available. It is available, but it's not easily available. And it's there to help industry kick forward. So it's there not to get industry to be competing with the typical organisations and countries, so our international partners who we import advanced machinery from. It's actually to put us in a position where we take advantage of all the incredible intellectual property and innovation within the UK that typically goes off overseas to be exploited, that we then buy back. And it's really to put the UK supply chain in a position where they want to buy it from us directly. So we will be delivering technologies, we will be delivering exploitable technologies, products and ideas that will, as I say, kick forward the supply chain in the UK. It will increase the resilience of the supply chain, as Tony gave the analogy there. Wasn't it awful that we just didn't have, it wasn't obvious of who we should turn to in the first instance to make ventilators. We had some great companies making ventilators, but it actually took the catapults to take it on in control on behalf of governments to reach out and to start pulling all this together. It just wasn't obvious who was who, and in the end it all became very messy. And all kudos to the catapult for delivering a reasonable program there, but it just went to show that the resilience in supply chain wasn't there, and a program like this is needed to help us deliver against challenges like that, particularly when we start thinking about the challenges that UK industry is up against. So it's typically, as I guess most countries are, making products and services and machines that are making products and services that actually aren't going to be needed now. So, for example, a company that makes grinding machines for crankshafts for internal combustion engines, the order book for those is going to dramatically decrease, as we're hearing at COP26 and the Paris Accord and so on. But what we do need is to desperately create the machines and technologies to make the electric drives of the future, the battery cases for the future. I was talking to the director of the Driving the Electric Revolution Challenge the other day, and he's only aware of one company in the UK that makes adequate winding machines for making electric motors of the scale that we need for to really transform our transport network and to really be a leader as we want to be. So there's a real opportunity to create the technologies we need to help the UK deliver against its ambitions for new technology, for new services, for higher skilled, higher quality and higher paid jobs. It is very much about benefiting businesses. The Strength in Places Fund, as I've mentioned before, is focused around West Yorkshire and Greater Manchester, but it equally has a national impact there across the UK's advanced machinery sector. So who will benefit from that? Who needs to be interested? And this applies both for the Strength in Places Fund, but AMPI at large. It's people who manufacture machineries. It is people who use them, and the really early stage of the supply chain, I guess, the people who are innovating, have the ideas, are doing the discovery-led research and developing it forward. But it also applies to people who need the skills that come with all of that, so come with the discovery, who come with the application and the service and the maintenance and the transition between machinery. So we need people who understand how advanced machinery works and can help businesses become more productive and more agile. That will obviously be needed by companies who need and who doesn't need to be continuously innovating and improving their productivity. And the reflected benefit then, of course, throughout the economy, we should be increasing exports, increasing sales. We should have more resilient supply chains, and we should also therefore get a more skilled and more engaged workforce. So the innovation programme within the Strength in Places Fund, as I've mentioned a couple of times, it is very much industrially focused. So we are delivering a number of named and defined projects to develop novel and next generation machinery capability. These will all be led by an industrial partner and have an exploitable outcome at the end of it. We have some money set aside. I'll come on to that a little bit more later. We have some money set aside to recruit some additional projects as we move forward. And within the next 12 months or so, we'll be coming back out to everybody to say this is how it works and this is how you get involved. But I would encourage people to start thinking of ideas now, because it takes a while. We have a tranche of work with our academic colleagues. So that's the discovery of technologies, processes and techniques. And that will be delivered in the usual fashion with the academics, but it will retain that industrial oversight. It will retain that industrial impact. The Innovation for Machinery programme, I4M, as I say, Andy's going to talk about it a little in a moment. It's all about helping overcome those initial hurdles, those barriers to innovation, by providing access to people and facilities in a simple and effective manner. And hopefully you remember me talking about business engagement and the importance there to strengthen the supply chains, to improve the outreach and make sure that we are on track and on message and holding ourselves to account. So the consortium looks like this. This is very much the geography, as I mentioned, across West Yorkshire and Greater Manchester. These are the existing 10 partners who are delivering projects and research within it. And I shan't read it all out, but you get a sense there that this is all about next generation intelligent systems, data-driven machine learning, control systems, and complex machinery design and development. And there's some really, really exciting stuff going on, and we're going to get an example of some of that in a moment. So opportunities to engage. We will be continuing these sorts of outreach and these engagement meetings. We will be holding workshops as it moves forward. We will be road mapping, and really, I can't believe we're in November 2021 already. So from the early next year onwards, we'll be really publicly visible and engaging. As I mentioned, we will be putting out a call for additional projects to come forward. So if you do have an idea, by all means start talking to us now, but do start thinking now, because it does take a good 12 months to really get something that's in a fundable state. Andy's going to talk more about the launch of the I4M scheme, and our colleague Steve is going to talk about engagement, which starts right here and now. Little bit of news, we are recruiting. So we have recruited a senior project manager in the region already, and spoken to some really fantastic candidates, and really pleased to have met some fantastic people across the region, and hopefully we'll stay in touch with them. Also, we still have a project officer role, which is a really, I think, really exciting development role for somebody to move into project management. So if you do know of anybody and you recommend them, please point them our way, and Rachel will share these slides up later, so the link will be in there. We've also established a LinkedIn site. It's moved forward a little bit from here, but please do join that and join the conversation and join the community. And again, that link will be in the pack. So that's me. Thank you for listening. Hopefully that's given you some insight into what we're looking at and what we're planning moving forward. And now you're actually going to hear more from those that doing. So who's next? Andy?
That's me.
Over to you.
Right, I'll try and share my slides. Let's get these running. Can you see that? Can anybody see my slides?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. I can't see them. Okay, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Innovation for Machinery, or the I4M program that Gareth mentioned earlier on. I work for National Physical Laboratory Operations Manager, MPL North. I'm based in Huddersfield, and I've been asked to lead that program. And it's similar in many respects to some of the smaller programs that have been out in the past to help businesses to move forward, to solve problems, or to take things from one TRL level to the next. Now, the program, it's...
We've lost your slides.
Okay, let's try again. I thought that might have happened. Tell me if you can see them now.
We can see the PowerPoint. It's not in projector mode, but you can see.
Yeah, let's try one more time. It doesn't seem to want to share, I'm afraid. Can you see them?
Yep.
All of them now?
Thanks,
Thank goodness.
Andy.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
all
you.
good.
Thank you. Unfortunately, it's automatically moved on. So it's a 4-year program starting in Q1 in January 2022, and I'm going to have to run them like this because somebody's put these, unfortunately, so they're automatically moving on. And there are certain limitations to the people who can join in the kinds of industry that we want, which I will run through. And it does cover the map that Gareth showed you earlier on, which is Greater Manchester and West Yorkshire. We have a set of postcodes which those actually apply to, so we can share those with you at some stage as well. It doesn't limit completely to the access to the fund. If you've got something that is going to benefit the region and benefit AMPI overall, then you're also welcome to apply. And the idea behind these programs is that they're fairly short, fairly sharp, but we do expect a beginning and an end and a proper outcome. So there's some eligibility criteria that I mentioned before. It's going to be free of charge to you, as long as you're eligible, and you need to be in the defined geographical area, which is West Yorkshire and Greater Manchester, and a UK registered company. You need to be working in the right sort of areas, the sorts of areas that were mentioned in Tony's talk earlier on: machinery, robotics, automation, and so on, and with a project that's relevant to AMPI objectives. And they were mentioned earlier on by Tony, but you can find more if you look on the AMPI website as well. It's well worth a look at that. And of course, the project needs to be supported by the program service providers, and I'll run through who they are shortly. And the final eligibility criteria in there is that it must be a project that we can complete with a maximum of 20 working days provision from the service providers. So the access to the program, there's going to be a triage process, so a very, very simple application where you apply online. Simple form to fill out, and we're going to try and keep it simple throughout the whole lot. And once we've got all of the applications in, or as the applications start to come up, we will have a regular triage process, which will consist of the 5 service providers, and they are the University of Manchester, University of Huddersfield, University of Salford, University of Leeds, and National Physical Laboratory. And between us, we've got a wide range of capabilities to support this particular industry. And as long as one of us or more of us can support your requirement, then there's a reasonable chance that you'll get a program of work. So the triage process will actually go through each of those applications and decide who can support them. And if we can, then we will present to you one or more of the possible programs of support we can give you, and give you the option to select which you want to take forward. And once we've refined that program and agreed it with yourself, the project will start. We expect the project from start to finish to take no longer than 3 months from start to finish date, 20 days worth of effort within that period. And the outputs of the projects, as well as providing the outputs that you expect, will include a final report and a short case study so that we can help to demonstrate to other organizations that this is a worthwhile process and we're making some progress in it as well. The sorts of relevant industries that we're looking at for this have been mentioned again by Tony and Gareth as we've gone through. So at the top of the list there is machine tool manufacturers, anybody in robotics, manufacturers and integrators, other machine manufacturers, digitalization, automation, machinery subsystems, all of these industries. So if you're one of those and you've got a project that you think we can help you with, come Q1 2022, January 2022, we'll be launching this scheme. In the meantime, as Gareth mentioned, don't hesitate to contact us to register an interest so that we know to contact when we make a start, and we will contact you as soon as we possibly can. Also, if you need to know any more information, there are my contact details. Gareth's mentioned that at the end of this, we will offer you the opportunity to either download the whole presentation itself or to get copies of individual presentations. So sometime tomorrow, you'd expect an email with the opportunity to do that. And that's me. And I'm now going to hand over to my colleague, Andrew Longstaff from the University of Huddersfield. We can see it, but you're muted.
You're muted, Andy.
Yep. I am, but I couldn't find the hoo-ha.
That's better.
One round the back. There you go. I've not learnt it yet. One day I'll get the technology right. So my name's Andrew Longstaff. I work at Huddersfield University, and I'm speaking on behalf of the team on the research part of the AMPI Strength in Places Fund, but also AMPI more generally. I'm going to concentrate quite a lot in this talk on what we're doing within the Strength in Places, but I think the point that Tony brought in right at the start is really vital to this. We're trying to get together a critical mass of very clever people who can help us to do the machinery of the future, and no one university, no one company, no one RTO in isolation is going to be able to do that. And the research program that we've come up with has been driven by the needs of industry. One of the needs of industry is teaching me to, there we go, I can move forward. So I'm going to talk about the Strength in Places element, which brings in ourselves at Huddersfield. We've been working on machine tools for a long time, on testing, error correction and control. With the University of Leeds, who are working on Spark machines for bespoke manufacturing, University of Manchester, who are bringing materials, surface engineering coatings and advanced drives and motion control. Salford, who are concentrating on modular robotic manipulators and autonomous machines in particular, and the National Physical Laboratory, who are looking at how embedded and in situ metrology and traceable industrial IoT arrays can help intelligent machinery. So this is all about the machines for the future. But actually that list of what we've got within those universities and MPL is really just touching the iceberg of where we want this research program to go. So we've had long discussions driven by the industrial partners and what they say we need, but also how we go about taking good ideas and getting them deployed. So the whole concept of AMPI is really trying to work almost seamlessly between the companies and the academics, if you like. So the way that it's split up is we've got this core AMPI research capacity, and that's to address the future grand challenges that apply to manufacturing machinery. So we're looking at those things that individually maybe aren't very exciting, but if we don't have them, as Tony said, we're not going to be able to make those machines. So primarily the fundamental research is going to take place at university and NPL. And once we get the new facility in Rochdale, some of it will happen in there. But critically, we want the research programme, even at that very fundamental level, to be working with our AMPI partners. And that does mean the people on the Strength in Places Fund, but it also has to mean anybody else who's got some sort of input or insight into where we go. And this is where we've been talking with the HVM catapults. They've got a lot of end users who can see what they need to make in the future. We, as AMPI consortium, need to know what they are, so we can be looking 3, 5, 10 years ahead and starting to think how the machines should be built to solve those challenges, not taking something that already exists and tweaking it and trying to get the best out of it, but it's not really the right shoe. We want to be designing the shoe of the future to solve those challenges. Then we move on to innovation. And Mark is going to talk about one of the innovation programs in a moment. These are slightly higher TRL, so they are addressing things that aren't today, but they are, you know, in the next couple of years. They are probably going to be undertaking the majority of the work at AMPI and at the partner companies, but some of that work will come back into the universities and MPL, and that's the point at which we can also bring in the catapult centres, other RTOs as well. And then finally, deployment. We've put all of this on the chart because ultimately everything we're doing on the left-hand side can't just be esoteric, blue sky, never going to become something. We've always got to have that vision of how in the future is that going to hit some sort of really useful product that can make things better in the future. So one thing that we have to do as an AMPI consortium is provide some research and innovation leadership to that. But what we don't want to do within Strength in Places is narrow ourselves and say this is all we can do. We need to be able to bring other people in, so we will be looking for other funding through traditional routes of Innovate UK, through EPSRC, through Horizon Europe, other mechanisms which we can use the critical mass that AMPI Strength in Places gives us to generate those programs. So that's kind of the overall. As I say, within Strength in Places, we had an industry-defined program. We wanted to be discovery and demand-led, so some of it has to be a great idea that might not quite work out, but at least we can see that it has some legs to it. So there's some discovery in there, and some demand-led where our partners, be they machine builders or subcomponent suppliers, say this is the sort of thing that we know is needed, and we can help to try and solve some of those problems. The middle point, I don't know quite why I've got a picture of an artist there, but leapfrogging the current state of the art, Microsoft thought I should have a picture of an artist. I quite like it. It really isn't about just designing another machine tool or another robot that looks very similar to the sorts of machine tools and robots you can see today. It's looking at how we get to the future, and I'll come on to the strategic aims there. So we've come up with an industry-defined academic research portfolio with 9 initial work streams. Each is led by an academic partner, but involves collaboration of all the partners. So it's fundamental collaboration with those industrial partners. And then finally, we've got providing leadership and standards, and that's kind of something that has to flow throughout this whole programme. It's leadership within AMPI, within the region, but then other universities, other research organisations within the UK, we'd like them to gravitate towards AMPI, find other mechanisms to work together, but fundamentally end up working as one UK PLC, to use a phrase that was coined about 15 or 20 years ago now, but still applies. Try and work together with AMPI being that sort of figurehead leadership role. So very quickly, the strategic themes for the research element are all around these 4 main things. So productivity, we want to make machines that make things as efficiently as possible, rather than taking an off-the-shelf machine and, as I say, just sort of tweaking it to get the best out of it. Step back, how can we do it better? But how can we do that in terms of designing and building machines? So instead of it taking 2 years and £2 million to design a new machine, can we come up with new ways of designing them so we can get that through a lot quicker? I think everyone's aware that mobile phones, cars, aircraft, the length of time that a product has in its life cycle is now so much shorter than it should be.
Yes.
We need to look at that for production machines as well. Agility and resilience, we want to make manufacturing more agile so that they can respond to things, you know, using the ventilator as another fine example, but just being able to produce the right things at the right time as efficiently as possible and be resilient. So we need to provide those machines, how we can design and make them so that it all works. And interoperability is a really big thing here. Sustainability, clearly, that's something that's in everybody's minds at the moment. So making machines that are more sustainable, that are designed already with an idea of how the second and third life of them will come about, not just at the end of it start trying to refit and refurb, have that built in from the start. But also health and safety, obviously absolutely critical in all of our manufacturing processes. And then the fourth one is future workforce, which we mustn't forget. So Tony has mentioned within big AMPI, we are thinking about the skills. Well, what we want to do in the research area is think about how can we accommodate the future workforce. So not try and crowbar them and make them adopt working practices that we were all using 20, 30, 40 years ago. But how can we bring in the new tools, the VR, the AR, things like that, so that the future workforce can interact with our machines more flexibly and better, which enables a more agile workforce as well. These are the 9 work packages that are at the start. There is an opportunity that we'll add some more things to this, and I'm not going to read through them all, but as you can see, a lot of it is around the design, doing better design of mechanical things, using materials and surface engineering to make better machines by really looking at things that probably have been ignored largely, embedding metrology at every stage of the process and using that level of measurement confidence to be able to apply tools like autonomous manufacturing and advanced compensation that we wouldn't otherwise be able to do if our data is a bit dodgy. So that's why metrology really is at the heart of all of this. I was only given 10 minutes, I've no idea how many I've spoken for, so I'm not going to go into detail. I think this is one of those where if people are interested in this research package, then we have that conversation afterwards. So that's all I've got to say on the research agenda, and to show just how joined up we are, I am now going to pass you over to Mark, who's going to talk about one of the innovation packages.
Thanks very much. Just so I can get my slides up. Hopefully that's now visible.
Yep, perfect, Mark.
So I'm Mark Stocker, I'm the CTO at Cranfield Precision, which is a division of Fives Landis, which is based in West Yorkshire. Their range of machines has for many years been cam and crank grinders for the automotive industry, and as was mentioned earlier, that industry is now rapidly moving away. We're having to move towards other revenue streams for our technologies. There's the large crank grinders. These are huge machines for generating or grinding huge cranks. This is not a business that's going away anytime soon. These are for ships and land-based power generation. This is still a really healthy market for us. However, the smaller cranks, which you can see here in this video, this is the market that is going away rapidly. Now you can see that there's a lot of technology that goes into these crank grinders. There's a lot of CNC control, a lot of servo control, and that is really useful technology that can be transferred to other businesses, and that's what the intention is. So we down at Cranfield, we've been developing wide range of machines over many years, and there's some technologies that go into these machines which are transferable to future projects and future markets for Landis. So we make these machines which are for grinding mirrors. I've got some video of this later, but grinding mirrors which are used to deflect light, which is used effectively to burn the patterns on the silicon chips. So we actually produce the machines that are being used in the next generation of extreme ultraviolet silicon wafer lithography systems. And we've been developing machines that can grind optics and optics molds. And this is what's now being developed to enable us to produce components which could be used in the electrification of the auto industry. Primarily, we're looking at bearings. Core to both of those machines is our CNC. We've been developing our own CNC for about 40 years. There's millions of pounds that have gone into the development of this CNC. And this is something that is one of the projects that we're going to be working with AMPI through to actually develop this CNC and try and get it into the wider market. So the two projects that we have with AMPI is next generation of twin turret grinder, which is the small grinder that I just showed you there, transferring it from a standalone machine, manually loaded, off machine metrology, to a fully integrated, automated manufacturing cell. That's what the bearing industry needs, and that's what we need to provide. And also we have this CNC, which we developed, as I said, over about 40 years. We want to turn that from a controller that only we use, into a CNC that is more widely available. And we're looking to generate or develop an open source version of the CNC to actually mean that there can be more development of the CNC done away from our business. So actually get more people using it, get more people getting benefit from it. And we in the long term also will benefit from having a wider community that's using it. So that's the second project that we have with AMPI. So just to show you the two projects have been a little bit more detail. This is the bearing machine that I told you about. This machine currently is grinding very good bearings, very flexibly, but it is a standalone machine. Everything, the parts are all manually loaded, the wheels are manually loaded and trued. The parts have to come off and we measure them off machine, and then we have to make adjustments from there. The next slide. This is, I don't normally show marketing videos, but this one, it actually is a good example to show because it shows the gap between where we are and where we need to be. So this is a marketing video that's been produced to say what our machine cell will do. Well, really, without the support of AMPI and without these projects that we're proposing and actually got funding for, it will be very difficult to go from where we are, which is this standalone machine, to this. And what we're looking to produce is this fully flexible, fully automated cell. So this is the machine on its own. In a sec, you'll see the thing that we need to add. It's this section on the back, which is integrated metrology, integrated auto loading. So we have these completely autonomous, flexible cells, which mean the manufacturer of bearings can be far more flexible than it is now. At the moment, every machine produces a single feature. All the machines are in series. If you want to make one bearing, it's more cost effective to make a few thousand. What they actually want to be able to do is to make batches of a few bearings. If they need 5 bearings, low volume, high value, they want to be able to do that. And that's what our machine has the potential to be able to do once we get to the point where it's fully automated, including integrated loading and metrology. So that's as much as we need to see of the marketing video. So now on to the second project, which is the CNC. To give you an idea of the value that we've had just as our company alone since the 70s of having our own CNC. If you look at the number of systems that we've produced, and if you look at the value of today's machines, it's roughly £1 million per machine. Having our own CNC has enabled about £2.5 billion in machine sales just for us. So that's what we want to try and widen. We want to try and widen the user base for this controller because it will have benefits for us and other partner companies and organisations in the UK. So that's what we're looking to try and do. So at the moment, our CNC is purely software. We use an industrial PC, and our CNC is actually just the software that sits inside that. It's extremely flexible and it's extremely configurable. This is the mirror grinding machine that I mentioned earlier. So these are the freeform mirrors that are being used to guide light, which is then burning the patterns on the silicon chips that are producing the chips that we all use every day. The same software or the same CNC is being used to produce freeform head-up display mirror molds, which is on our twin turret grinder. So this is the forerunner of the grinder that's now being used for producing bearings. So that's the fairly complex freeform shapes that we can produce there. The same CNC is being used to enable us to grind these bearings. So it's quite complex interpolative motions that are being used here. And it's a very powerful CNC that we have, and we should not just be keeping it to ourselves. There are more people that need to be using this, which is why we're doing this project with AMPI. We've developed a lot of things in the CNC. So we have embedded in the CNC, we have this digital twin, which enables us to predict the performance of the CNC in advance of actually using it on the components that we're working with. We have a world-class data logging on our machine, which enables us to analyze what's actually gone on during the grind. Now, this is another part of the project that we need to develop in terms of making our grinder a fully flexible and automated cell. One of the intentions of the project that we have with AMPI is to be able to real-time monitor what's going on these data loggers. So this is effectively this spindle power, spindle position, axis positions, and we can monitor those in real time and then use that data to actually produce feedback to monitor the cell and actively modify what the cell is doing while we're working. That's the intention of part of the development. So this is an integrated one really, where it's partly the CNC, which is one of our projects, and partly the twin turret generator, twin turret grinder development, which is two projects, but they have a common link, which is the CNC. So this is what's next. What we're doing now is we're developing a twin turret manufacturing cell. We're turning our standalone machine that we have in our R&D facility, and we will be putting in equipment that allows us to test and evaluate in situ metrology and in situ robotics. And also the next step for the CNC is to get the first level of open source CNC available into AMPI, and some of our partner companies are actually interested in using it as well. So that's what we're planning next. I had quite a few slides, so I had to go quite quickly. So hopefully I managed to get through it reasonably clearly. And next it's on to Steve.
Okay, good afternoon. I shall take over. I'm just going to share my content. So yeah, I'm going to assume everyone can hear me okay. I'm going to talk a bit about the industrial engagement. It's mainly myself and Rob Woolen working on it from University of Huddersfield. Excuse me. And our role is Work Package 4 in the SIP programme. Our experience is used to run the mass for Yorkshire and Humber, North of England, most of Growth Accelerator, other programmes. So we have far more years, or probably as many years as my face explains, of working with manufacturers offering support. And I think it's critical you have that experience. The people who work in my team are all ex-manufacturers, so can very quickly relate to issues. What we're wanting to do is build a common approach across. I mean, we're talking about strengthening places 4 here, strengthening places and Work Package 4, but there's also AMPI the Institute and AMPI the building. So what we want is a common approach to businesses that is across all these offerings. And for us, we also run the Leeds City Region LEP supply chain and manufacturing high growth programs for the LEP. So we have a wealth of experience and a supply chain analyst in our program where we can look at cluster maps for the engineering, the machinery sector over across the north of England, but then also specifically for individual businesses. So I think, as we've been around a bit, as I was saying, it's about the relationship and the offer to the business. But it's also about how do you build the network and connect all these various offers that's out there in the moment. We've got to remember that there are LEP and other offers around at the moment of business support, and we need to coordinate and make sure they're brought in to also support the business as well as SIP, as well as the MPL offer. But our job is to coordinate industrial and business engagement across both these areas. I'll go the right way this time. So problem statement for me, or the activity statement, is understand the need and opportunity in the sector and offer the capability and understand the offer and capability in the delivery partnership. We took this from Gareth's bid statement. I won't go through them in any detail, but it is the actual wording from the big document about what Work Package 4 looks like. And it's high-level mapping of the sector. Look for where new supply chain partners and new industrial partners would add to the service offer that is already there through the universities, through people like Andrew and the other 3 unis. It's also about the key industrial stakeholders and programme partners, so that we offer more than just the institute, or more than just the SIP programme, more than just I4M. And we understand what the actual universities can offer. So we do a bit of a gap analysis around defining the industrial sectors. What would the growth of the sector look like in the UK, and what is it we actually have to put together with working with the businesses to identify those areas and communicate that into future industrial partners, but also into the offerings from the uni. So I'm whipping through these slides, but we'll share them. I was going to do the Vanessa Williams quote about save the best to last, but I forgot at the beginning. So I'm whipping through as quick as I can. We need to define all the relevant networks as well, because we need to get the right businesses into this programme and into the support from AMPI in Rochdale, and connecting up to ones we know very well in the West Yorkshire, the Kirklees and Calderdale, Barmer, Make UK, MTA, etc., and obviously over in the other side of the Pennines in Rochdale, Manchester areas, to make sure we've got the most relevant networks to build the AMPI network. And we've got a programme, we have someone in our team that's going to be paid for by the programme, but we've also got the support itself. I just went too far then. So we're going to map existing business support, what's there in Leeds, what's there in Greater Manchester, and we're going to keep an ongoing register of that. And also it's very key to identify the key political stakeholders in both areas, working with Neil up at Rochdale, and to set these KPIs to get something to happen. Now, we've already started the mapping process. I'm going to share the first version with you. It doesn't look great, but it is. It's taken from Companies House, so we've used the correct SIT codes from Companies House that indicate the sector, and Mirek, our supply chain analyst, has identified the location of these businesses that are nominally in the sector, if you believe SIT codes, which is another story. So we're looking at the sector, we're also working with individual businesses to identify supply chains and route maps within this larger picture. So I want to show people that we've started. I think one of our big roles as the kind of work package 4 is the funnel into AMPI Limited, into the connections. So we've got the supply chain mapping where we can identify specific businesses. It's all right doing a bit of a blunderbuss approach of let's tell everyone, but what we're more about is a sniper approach of who are the businesses we should be working with to make sure we're fully representing the sector. Obviously, the SIP programme is a great offer and we'll bring people in. There's going to be an AMPI-based BDM from Rochdale that will feed in as well, and as well as the local Rochdale and Growth Hub support. Academic partners will also be talking to businesses that will be fed into this funnel. And we've mentioned organisations like Midas. So there's a flow into the programme, into AMPI Limited. We've designed a AMPI Limited client journey. So this is not just for the SIP programme or for the skills area or for I4M. This is the programme. So all businesses will come in, be registered and be client managed by either someone from our team or from Rochdale. There'll be a diagnostic to see what the business needs. So it's about business need first. And then once we've identified business need, they will then go off to either I4M as the diagram shows, or skills offer, or the supply chain, tech adoption, sustainability offer, to maybe be part of the facilities. What we want to do in the building that's going up is that make sure that we're putting the right facilities, the right types of environment in there to support the businesses. And as you'll see, the next diagram shows others, as in other LEP / regional programs. So each business will have a bespoke action plan from these factors so that we make sure that we deliver the best service possible to the business. And that's dependent on any size of business. It's not specific SMEs, but anyone who's working with the programme will receive the support. Now I've identified where work package 4 sits, which is the registration, the client management, the diagnostic, to then push them to feed them into the right service. And then we pull together an action plan given the offer from these various services. And this is what we're working on with Neil at Rochdale. Amazing how quickly I've gone through this. So the summary for me is work package 4, which is what we are running, is about industrial engagement. And it's about making sure we get to the right businesses. It's a link to the industry group and all the various boards that are associated with AMPI, and there's some work to do to tidy those up. But it's to build the AMPI community network, which is businesses that like to work with us. Who's that in that next tranche of people researching and working with the academics? So we've already got the first group I've identified. We're looking at who are coming through for next spring, next summer. And I'm very passionate about this, identifying the businesses we should be working with by doing the mapping, looking at people's supply chains. We can pick businesses we don't even know about today and hopefully connect through to them with a good offer of the business support that I showed you. So that will build the networks and the stakeholders, map and understand the sector, understand the academic provision from the 4 partner universities, so that we can build an understanding of what is out there, what is needed, and where we can supply it from. It needs to be a strong connection through to the actual physical location, AMPI, the institute, and to have joint industrial engagement plans so that the industry engagement is joined up. It's not random NPL doing this or Rochdale doing that. This is a joined up approach, and it's about growing the capability and filling the gaps in the sector to do this growth that Andy and Tony spoke about in the sector. So I'll share the presentation. I did whip through those first slides really quickly, but for me, thank you for listening, and obviously any questions in the chat room.
Lovely, thank you very much, Steve, and thanks to everybody who presented. I think it was a real great whistle-stop tour that we had, and we've stayed vaguely on time, which is pretty good. Good performance from us, so thank you to all the presenters. So we'll now go into the Q&A. So if you do have any questions, I know we've got one ready from Ross, which we'll address now. If there are any other questions from the group, please feel free to pop them into the chat. Otherwise, I'll have to pick in the presenters, which I'm going to do anyway. So the first question then from Ross, which is to Mark from Thieves. The question is, are you only machining metals, or do you do things like plastics as well? Don't know if Mark's still available.
I think you might be on mute, Chris.
Okay, no worries. Are you able to hear us, Mark? And if so, could you may be stuck on mute? In a couple of seconds. If not, we'll maybe try and ask your other questions, then maybe come back to Mark, if that's all right. And then Ross, if we don't manage to get Mark, we'll get the answer for you on that. No problem. So
was that a question from Mark Stocker? I just missed.
Sorry, sorry. Cheers, Mark. It's just a question that's come from Ross from the panel about your machining processes. So the question was, are you just machining metals, or do you also do plastics?
There is some turning of plastics that we do. Generally, with plastics, we're actually making molds that make plastic mirrors. We don't normally machine plastics directly, usually indirectly.
Okay, Ross, does that answer the question that you have sufficiently, or is there any more context you wanted to add to that? Wicked. Okay, thank you very much. Cool. So again, if there's any other questions for the guys, please feel free to pop them into the chat. I'll now jump on to some of my questions. So the first one probably goes to a combination of Gareth and Tony, if that's all right. So within Andrew's presentation, he mentioned how we're trying to address sort of the current grand challenges and current challenges of industry. How are we going to ensure, as part of AMPI moving forward, that we continue to align to and address the needs of industry at that current point of time?
Tony. Yeah. So as I mentioned, part of the role of the programme, but is the enduring role of the AMPI, the Institute, is to continually engage, understand what the challenges are, understand what the opportunities are, test whether we're doing anything about it, and make sure we are. So we are planning to engage in building our strategic roadmap, drawing on the excellent work that's been done by the trade associations like the Manufacturing Technologies Association, by the High Value Manufacturing Catapults, by the Advanced Propulsion Centre, You know, there's some really great work out there that needs the advanced machinery lens put over it, and that gives us an opportunity to engage with industry, test those roadmaps, and focus on what's needed, and then yeah, be specific, be a little bit deliberate about trying to address those gaps.
Just building on that, that's absolutely right. From my point of view as an industrialist, having been making machines for a long time and having had some contact with various research bodies and institutes and initiatives, because they've been around for a while, I've always felt that there's not enough activity from that centre or from those bodies to me as a businessman. So I felt that if I pick up on stuff now, it's easier with LinkedIn and digital communications methods, but the onus is still very much on the businesses to go out and find information, to know what's happening, and to you know what I mean. You've got to push all the time. What I'd like to see AMPI do is clearly there's always going to be a need for that, for businesses to take the initiative as well. But I think AMPI needs to be very active in that role, in that engagement role that Gareth just mentioned. AMPI needs to be in businesses' faces and saying, we can do this, this is where we're trying to take the industry. So be very much more actively engaged rather than be just there in the background. I know that's not easy to do. I think it's going to take a cultural shift in our thinking to do it that way, but that's the way we'd like to push AMPI.
Chris, you're muted.
How's everybody's sign language and lip reading? Just another one for both of you, Andy, Tony and Gareth, just while I've got you on screen. Obviously, we've heard about AMPI the Institute and the Strength in Places programme. And I guess we've seen a number of different ways we can make contact. Is there one particularly preferred means for people to get in contact? So say, for example, for AMPI the Institute, I'm a local business, I really want to get involved with the steering group, that kind of thing. Is that the same way that I would get involved if I was somebody who wanted to deliver an innovation project via Strength in Places, or are the two separate means to getting involved with the two separate work streams?
I think the simplest thing is to say that we are one coherent community. So however you come in, you will find the right place, or we'll find you the right angle. I have taken the liberty of creating a couple of email accounts. So for the Strength in Places Fund one, ampi.sipf@mpl.co.uk, just because it's easy for me to do that. So we've created that. We'll pop it in the chat in a moment. Rachel, maybe you could do that. We do have another one, thefuture@ampi.org.uk. Love that one. That's my favourite email address ever, actually. thefuture@ampi.org.uk. So ampi.org.uk exists as a website. That's a really good place to start. We will need to nurture it and make sure it's still live, but it's an excellent place to start, and that should get you to us. And if not, as I mentioned earlier, we've got the LinkedIn site there as well, which is another great way. As most social media junkies, it's usually pinging up on my phone. So if you want an urgent response, that may be one of the better ways of reaching out. But a couple of different angles there.
And just to kind of further it, really, Chris, I think if we've got some direct contacts through Gareth and myself, if people want to contact us, whatever the inquiry is, whether it to do with Strength in Places or innovation funding or future membership and so on, doesn't matter. Just contact one of us, and we'll funnel those inquiries into the right place. At the moment, the infrastructure is only just getting started, so we're not as organised as we will be a few months from now. We will have a proper coordinated communication system that we'll put out and make sure everybody's aware of. But for now, just contact us directly. We'd be very glad to hear from people.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Tony, I think you're off the hook now. Gareth, you're not quite off the hook, but I'm going to bring Andy in. this one. So just going, Andy, just sort of going back to your presentation on the I4M scheme. Obviously that's great and a fantastic opportunity, so thanks for presenting on that. The question that came to mind for me when we were going through it was if we had a particularly good and promising project that was really fleshed out and understood through I4M, would that be eligible to find further funding to develop it as a full project through this sort of the future ongoing research and innovation fund that we have?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Actually, there are several possible outcomes from an application for an I4M project. At the one end of the scale, you've got that it's not eligible, in which case it won't just be a no. We'll always try and signpost you in the right direction to some other funding or some other organisation that might be able to help. The most obvious way forward is to actually agree a project and do it. However, there will be times when either at the triage process we recognise that a project is just too big for I4M, in which case we'll forward it to the relevant teams to look to see whether or not it could be a much larger project, or even if we undertake a project and see that there are significant opportunities for something much bigger and much better, we'd also forward that on as well to the relevant teams.
Great, thank you very much. I have one final question, I think, for mine, and I've eroded all of mine, and that's for Andrew Longstaff, and probably the wider group as well. It's not specifically just going to be Andrew, but he sort of put a slide up that triggered it, so I'm going to put it to Andrew first. So sorry, not sorry. So you mentioned the different sort of initial work streams within the sort of the research work package side of things. Obviously, these are the sort of areas that we've deemed as critical and important to be working on moving forwards. Are there any of these areas that we feel were particularly light in terms of skill sets or in terms of sort of feet in the ground to be able to work on them and support them, whether that's from an industrial perspective or from a research perspective? Because I guess going forward, we're constantly looking to grow and develop the consortium, the working group. Are there any areas that you would sort of look to prioritise this in terms of skill sets and bringing in?
I think so. I think most of the partners will be recruiting. Some have got existing staff. So I think what we've done is put a program in place that we know we can support, with some stretch ones where we know we have to recruit. So that there are a few areas like that. So I wouldn't say there's any specific technology. The other thing about it, though, is it is. Although we've got our program, we've got our steer from the industrial advisory group, we have kept it pretty flexible. And one of the reasons we did that, a conversation with Paul Shaw early on, is we don't know everything. And there's going to be things that crop up in year 1 and 2 of AMPI Strength in Places that we know we're going to have to come in and respond either to new discovery or whatever. So there is some flexible funding that remains within that that research pot that allows us to plug those gaps either with other colleagues in the existing institutions or even another institution within the Strength in Places. But we believe that between academic colleagues and the industry colleagues, everything that we need, we've got covered enough at the moment.
Thank you very much. That's it for my questions. Final call from any further questions around the group, or Gareth or any of the other sort of panelists. Is there anything else you want to say before we finish up? Take silence is golden.
Only that we're just getting started. So genuinely, please do get in touch. You will be hearing more from us. This is AMPI is for life, not just for Strength in Places Fund or just for Christmas, which is quickly coming. So yeah, please lend us your support, lend us your ears, and get involved.
Can I chip in as well, Chris, with something?
Absolutely. Yeah, please do.
Please, yeah, just really a call to arms to everybody listening. Really, that we all know that we've got the house is burning down a little now with this environmental challenge that we're all facing, and one of the areas of absolute priority to me is the ability to improve the circularity of our economy in terms of materials usage and disposal, and that will be a machinery challenge. That will come right through all the advanced technologies that we're currently working with in precision, in metrology, in vision systems. All of that will be incorporated, or will need to be incorporated to deliver the machines that are required to sift, sort, reuse materials, and we've got to get onto it. And I think the UK can really lead the way in this if we coordinate our activities as an industry and really get on it, and that's the kind of thing that AMPI is absolutely square, central, should be focused on, and that's the kind of innovation that really will make a difference. So and I'm really excited to get involved in anything like that. So please, to everybody listening, everybody involved, if you know of any technologies that warrant some effort like that, bring them to AMPI.
I was going to add just one thing, Chris, which is that we, as I mentioned earlier on, you'll receive an email tomorrow just to offer you the opportunity to watch the recording of this or to download any presentations. And I'd also suggest that if you know of anybody else, either in your own organisations or any other businesses who might be interested in this, please share that with them as well. We want to get as many people involved as we can.
Brilliant. Thank you, Andy. Okay, we shall call it there, I think, and wrap up. So thank you very, very much for everybody who joins and contributed, and thank you very much, especially to the speakers for that. That was great. Before I disappear into darkness, because apparently my light bulbs don't work, we'll finish there. Just before we go, any final questions people might have that pop into their head this evening or tomorrow, please feel free to send them through. We will get back to you. We'll send them around the group and we'll respond. But just to finish by saying thank you very much to everybody, and have a great rest of the day. Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Bye.